You sold yourself for cash? Now watch it fly away, along with the life you just lost.
For as long as anyone could remember, the Everett name was synonymous with determination. Don's grandfather had carved a modest farm out of untamed land, enduring hardships that would have broken most men. Generations later, Don's father expanded that legacy, instilling in his son the importance of resilience and hard work. The family farm wasn't sprawling or prosperous, but it thrived under the steady hands of those who cherished it. Don carried this legacy like a badge of honor, knowing that every sunrise was a fresh chance to build upon his father's dreams. Don's own journey hadn't been without trials. Between marrying young and grappling with the relentless demands of farming, life tested him at every turn. Yet, no matter the circumstances, Don found a way to keep moving forward. His love for his wife, Mona, and his pride in their 2 children were the guiding forces that kept him grounded, even when the weight of the world seemed unbearable. That was the type of man he was, solid, unwavering, and always seeking the silver lining. Don Everett drove through Wilson's mill, tapping the steering wheel as Willie talked beside him. The air was hot and dry, and dust stuck to his sweat-soaked shirt. Despite the oppressive heat and grease-stained clothes, Don wasn't angry. He faced life's challenges calmly, always pushing forward with a quiet resolve. On his way to the John Deere dealership 37 miles away to pick up a part for his broken combine, Don reflected on his blessings. Good health, a hard-working wife, 2 kids, and loyal friends. Life wasn't perfect, but he had all he needed. As Don neared the edge of town, he slowed and frowned. Randy's truck was parked in front of the local bar. Normally, this wouldn't be surprising, especially on a Friday or Saturday night. But at noon, in the middle of harvest season, it seemed off. Randy's truck was half on the sidewalk, which made it clear something was wrong. Don knew Randy and Shirley had been having problems lately. He didn't know the details, but the rumors around town suggested Randy had good reason to be upset with her. Don parked his truck and turned back toward the bar. He slid into a spot next to Randy's truck, stepped out, and took a moment to let his eyes adjust to the dim interior. Behind the bar, Dottie was perched on her stool, watching the door. Randy didn't acknowledge Don as he entered. He was sitting alone in the back booth, staring blankly ahead, his eyes fixed on a small wall of honor. 4 empty bottles sat on the table, and he was almost finished with a 5th. Before Dottie could speak, Don walked up to the bar. "Dos Equis Lager, please, Dottie," he said, nodding toward Randy. "Do you know what's going on?" "No," Dottie answered, concern in her voice. "He came in here about 30 minutes ago, fuming, and he's been drinking ever since. He'd already been drinking before he showed up. I'm going to have to step in soon. He hasn't said a word to me, just tells me when he wants more. Whatever it is, it's definitely bad." Don took his beer and made his way to Randy's table. He sat down without asking and watched Randy for a while. Neither of them said anything. Randy finished his beer, grabbed the empty bottle, and shook it, looking toward the bar. Dottie sighed, hesitated, then pulled out another bottle, opened it, and handed it to him. "This is the last one, Randy," Dottie said firmly. "You've had a few before you got here, and this will be your 6th in under an hour. You need to hand over your keys, too, son." Randy took the beer and glared at Dottie. He tipped the bottle back and took a long sip, his eyes once again fixed on the wall on the photographs. His grip tightened around the bottle, his jaw set in anger. Don glanced at what Randy was staring at. It looked like a photo of the 2 of them, along with Stuart Pauls, Mona Graber, Wilson Anderson, and others from their security company during Desert Storm nearly 16 years ago. Don didn't understand why Randy was looking at the photo with such hatred. Finally, Don spoke. "You want to talk about it, buddy?" Randy turned his head, meeting Don's gaze for the first time. His face tightened. "You know?" he asked. "How long has she been doing this?" Don frowned, glancing at the photo again. "What are you talking about, buddy?" Randy gave a short, bitter laugh. "That's right. You're the only one who didn't know, except for me. This whole thing's a nightmare. Even Dottie knows. Don't you, Dottie?" Don looked at Dottie, who frowned, shrugged, and then shook her head. Randy's eyes blazed with fury. "Nonsense!" he shouted. "You're all in on it. I thought we were like brothers, you know? Bros before anything else. Come on, Don." "Come on, Randy," Don said. "We've been close since high school, but I have no idea what you're talking about right now. At least give me a hint." Randy stared at Don for a moment, his mind clearly racing. Finally, he spoke. "Well, maybe you don't know. Ever since you married Mona, you've been around less, but you still show up at the coffee shop. Didn't Mona say anything?" Don thought he understood now. "Yeah, but..." Before Don could finish, Randy jumped to his feet and swung a punch at him. Don quickly dodged, just barely avoiding the blow. He was relieved the table had booths along the wall. If the place had been full, Randy might have landed the punch. As it was, Don almost lost his balance when his legs got tangled in a falling chair. Randy lunged again, but he was so drunk he lost his footing, and Don managed to wrap his arms around him, pinning his arms to his sides. "Hey, son, I don't know what's got into you, but you asked. Now, let me finish," Don said, his voice steady. "Like I said, yeah, we all know you and Shirley have been having trouble for the last few months. Hell, I've heard some of the things she's said to you, and if Mona talked to me like that, we'd be going in circles. But that's all I know, and I think that's all Mona knows too. That's no reason to try and hit me, though. Damn it, we're friends." Randy struggled for a moment longer, then relaxed. To Don's surprise, Randy slumped back into his seat and started crying. Don looked over at Dottie and shook his head. He thought to himself, "Great, now we've got a crying drunk." He glanced at his watch. It was getting late, and he still had to make it to the hardware store before it closed. He needed that part for the combine, and then had to head home. Damn. Finally, Don made a decision. He reached into Randy's pocket, pulled out his wallet, and walked over to the bar. "How much is it, Dottie?" he asked. 7 bottles of beer cost $14 as usual, Don. You know that." Don pulled $15 out of Randy's wallet and then grabbed a bill from his own pocket, handing both to Dottie. "You gonna leave him here?" she asked, a worried look on her face. "I don't know," Don said, shaking his head. "But you don't think I can just leave him here, do you?" Dottie gave a small smile and shook her head. "Understood. Keep it quiet, Dottie," Don said. "I'll take him with me while I grab the parts for the combine. Maybe if you can figure out what's going on, I can help. This isn't like him at all." Don returned to Randy, helped him up, and said, "Come on, Randy. You're coming with me to the city while I get the spare parts. We'll talk on the way." As they drove down the road, the tires humming on the pavement, Don glanced over at Randy. He was staring out the window, jaw clenched. Don broke the silence. "Now, buddy, why don't you tell me what the hell is going on today?" "She's a damn witch, and she's going to leave me," Randy muttered. "What? Who's this witch, and why is she leaving you?" "Shirley," Randy said bitterly. "Yeah, I know we've been at each other's throats for a while, but she's really going to leave me. You think swearing's going to help? I don't just call her names, Don. She's a damn hoe. These are the facts. I overheard her talking to Trickster Willie this morning." Don was stunned. "What?" "Yeah," Randy said coldly. "She was supposed to go into town to pay some bills and do some shopping, but I overheard her talking to him. He told her he had 1 client for her this morning and 3 more at noon. I couldn't believe it. I watched them through the door. She was laughing, flirting with him, asking him how much he charges. He told her for $1,500 she could do anything, any hole, as many times as they wanted. And she was asking questions. Made my blood boil. Damn cheater. She just stopped and smiled, then extended her hand and said, 'Money in advance.' Willie looked offended and said he would pay, then asked her if she didn't trust him. She said, 'Hell no, I don't trust you, you idiot. Last time I had one of those unlimited deals, you paid me for a simple check. Now I want my $1,000 up front or I won't see a dime.' She told him, 'You know I have to earn enough to get the hell out of here. I can't stand this anymore. I'm sick of this damn farm, the dirt and all that crap. I'm sick of all these damn farmers.' 2 years ago, I told him I was tired of this and wanted to move, but he just blew me off. Willie told her he didn't have any cash on him and would have to pay her later. She looked at him for a second, then said, 'Okay, fine, but no money, no Zex. Understood? I'll get my share before anything happens, or I won't even go in the room.' He scolded her, then said, 'Okay, fine. Let's get the hell out of here before that idiot comes back or we'll be late.' They both got in their cars and drove off. Don was in shock. 'Wow, man. Are you sure that's what they said? What happened when you confronted them?' 'I didn't say a word,' Randy replied. 'Call it what you want. I mean, I was so stunned, and they left so quickly, I just stood there in shock. Then I went into the house, had a couple drinks, and went to Dottie's. You know the rest.' The rest of the ride was silent as the two men focused on the road and their own thoughts. On the way back, Don finally asked, 'So what now? Are you going to explain things to her or what?' 'What the hell are you talking about?' Randy shot back. 'The witch is gone, and Willie will stay in the world of offended men. You should have taken your piece and handled it instead of getting drunk. I probably screwed this up, but yeah, we're going to have a fight. Now, a little pain will pass, and I'll divorce that witch as quickly as possible.' Both men kept reflecting on the events of the day as they drove. Don barely slowed down to the speed limit. As they passed Wilson's Mill, Randy suddenly shouted, 'Hey, you forgot my truck, Don!' 'No, I didn't forget, Randy. You're coming home with me, and we'll talk about this some more. I want Mona involved. And I think we need Slim, too.' 'Mona? Dude, I don't know. She's pretty close to Shirley. I think Slim's fine. But why do you want him involved? You know all 4 of us were like brothers. We've been friends since high school.' Besides, Mona's sharp, probably smarter than any of us. I trust her completely. She won't give you away after what her sister-in-law did to her brother. She hates traitors with a passion. I never really liked the Dodger, but after we got back, something changed in him. We all stuck together after high school, went through hell together. We had each other's backs, Don said. Well, the ones still around have your back now, Randy replied. I thought when we were over there and Shirley and Trickster Willie were hooking up, they'd end up married. We were all shocked when she married you instead. I could never figure that one out. Really? I guess I was just blind, Randy muttered. Willie and Shirley were in the same platoon. We were all together on missions, Don explained. I thought the same thing, Randy admitted. Shirley and Willie seemed like a couple, but maybe I was wrong. Damn, I don't know. She slept with Willie, yeah, but she slept with me too, Don continued. And I heard she was with others, but I couldn't prove it. I spent a lot of time with her. Hell, we were all lonely. And it was good sex. It still is. I thought we were close, but sometimes she'd go off with Willie, and I'd see her with someone else afterward. After Willie's dad passed and he came home early, Shirley and I started spending a lot of time together. Shirley told me she was pregnant before we went back. Said I was the only one she'd been with since Willie came home and the baby was mine. We got married right away, but a couple of months later she had a miscarriage. I don't know what happened. We had our issues over the years, and she never got pregnant again. Every time Willie came back to town, things got bad. I should have left her years ago, but when things were good, they were really good. She kept a good home and helped out when times were tough. This time, it's worse, Randy said. When Don and Randy returned to Don and Mona's house, Randy was still drunk. Instead of heading straight to the broken equipment, Don stopped at the house. Randy followed him inside. Mona came into the kitchen from the sewing room, saw Randy, and smiled. Hi, Randy. Been a while. You okay? Don cut in. No, honey, he's got some problems. We're stopping for tea before we get back to the combine. Want to help us out? We need to talk, and I can't waste more daylight. Mona frowned but nodded. Let me turn off the sewing machine, and I'll come. While working on the combine, the men explained everything to Mona. She frowned. Damn, I had a feeling. I heard she was, well, a little loose. But after you guys married, I thought she'd settled down. I've heard rumors about some women who get by that way, even had a few offers myself. But I never wanted to cause problems with Dawn. Yeah, I heard Willie was her pimp back then, but that was just gossip. There were rumors you wanted Shirley after Willie. I didn't believe it, though. If things got too obvious, Command would have stepped in, but I just thought it was all rumors. Mona turned serious. Do you have proof she's back to her old ways? If you want a divorce, you've got to make sure you've got everything in order. If she's got money stashed away, even ill-gotten, it's still marital property. You deserve some of it in the divorce. Don't do this halfway. Randy looked at Mona and grinned. Yes, First Sergeant. Whatever you say. Mona shot him a look. Idiot. You know how I feel when we're not on duty. As for doing this right, leave that to Don and me. First thing, we need to get things settled at home. We don't need her running off before we're ready. I'll call her and tell her Don found you drunk in town and brought you back here. No, I have a better idea. I'll say the combine broke down and you're helping us fix it. Perfect. You're an engine sergeant, a great mechanic, so it makes sense you'd be helping. You can stay the night, and we'll say we worked late. If she asks, we can bring Slim in to help with the plan. After Shirley's call, the three friends contacted Slim, who agreed to come help them with the combine. After Slim arrived, against Mona's better judgment, they grabbed beers and sat around the kitchen table discussing Randy's issues with Shirley. They realized they needed more help and called in a couple of trusted security friends. They had to be cautious, though, since Shirley was still in the Guard and they didn't want rumors to reach her. That weekend, the three friends attended a security meeting as usual, but also found time to quietly recruit 2 or 3 reliable people to assist Randy. They only spoke to those they trusted, making sure to avoid involving anyone else. Slim, still on duty with a different unit, planned to contact a few people during his next exercise. The security community was small and many people knew each other, especially in the upper ranks, which worked to their advantage. Randy struggled to stay at home with Shirley around, but thankfully it was his busiest time of year, so he could be away at work. His routine of eating quickly, talking little to her, and going to bed early gave him a legitimate excuse to avoid her, and he managed to keep their intimacy at bay. After his first round of STD tests came back negative, Randy felt more at ease. He suspected Shirley used protection with her clients and was relieved he hadn't contracted anything. The Guard regularly tested for diseases, so his civilian tests were mostly for peace of mind. 10 days later, the friends met to finalize their plan. Mona, as first sergeant, had access to the armory, and with Randy and Don's positions, it was easy to arrange a meeting. They got approval from her commander to gather in the armory under the pretense of legitimate work. At the designated time, the group of 3 friends and 6 fellow guardsmen met, dressed in uniform, to avoid raising suspicion. They made sure to leave behind paperwork that could be linked to future training, which also helped them justify the evening's work. The meeting was held in a military manner. They prepared an operational order, brainstormed their strategy, and listed the necessary equipment. Some equipment was supplied by the Guard, which they planned to use. While it would be used in an unauthorized way, their rank and experience gave them confidence they could get away with borrowing it, as long as nothing was damaged. Surveillance would be led by 3 men Slim had hired from his military police unit, 2 of whom were law enforcement officers in their civilian jobs, one a deputy sheriff and the other a city cop. They brought valuable experience and high-quality surveillance equipment. If they could gather enough evidence on Shirley and Willie, they could use it for legal action, potentially bringing in other law enforcement agencies. 2 weeks after their first planning session, the operation was ready to begin. Everyone knew their roles, and the mission was set to unfold like a military operation, even though it was in a civilian setting. The first step was intelligence gathering. They downloaded programs to Shirley and Willie's phones, tapped landlines, and installed cameras and recorders in their homes and vehicles. They also targeted other individuals to find potential accomplices. It took them 2 weeks to discover where Shirley hid her money. Unsurprisingly, she didn't have a local bank account or a safe deposit box, but she kept her earnings in a safe hidden inside an old garbage disposal behind the machine shed. The safe was later welded inside the combine near the straw separator. Shirley accessed it by climbing under the combine, a spot she used regularly to hide the cash. Once they found the safe, the team installed a high-sensitivity camera inside the harvester to record the dial and identify the combination. On the 20th day of surveillance, Mona received a call from Slim, who was leading the operation. "We've got a serious problem," Slim said. "Terry's losing it and wants out. We need to make a decision and probably get some outside influence." Mona, not worried, replied, "What's the problem, Slim? Calm down. You sound more wound up than when we were setting up mortars." Willie and Shirley were working today, with the motel room serving as their base for midday clients. After Willie collected his payment, Shirley asked for her cut of the day's earnings. He told her, "This afternoon's a freebie, like an insurance policy for us." Shirley shot back, "Bull? Nobody gets me for free, and I'm not going to give 4 idiots unlimited access for nothing. I'm out of here." Willie grabbed her hand and pulled her back into the room, then onto the bed. Looking anxious, he explained, "We don't have a choice, Shirley. The sheriff, the chief of police, and 2 of their buddies are our current clients. One of them must have found out about us. The sheriff came to me with a deal. They get free access once a month and 10% of our profits, or we go to jail. We have no choice." Terry was shaken by the situation and wanted to leave, but they convinced him to stay until they spoke to Mona. Now they were uncertain about who they could trust in law enforcement and worried about the potential fallout from the unauthorized surveillance. Terry was already uneasy about being involved in the investigation, especially when it seemed to involve corrupt local officials. Mona assured them she'd figure it out and called Slim back after speaking with Don. "Slim, stay calm today and keep Terry in check. Be sure to take good notes and bring them to me after the operation. We need solid backups and secure places to store the recordings. We'll have a team meeting Monday night at the armory. Stay on top of it for now." The group paused their surveillance of Shirley and Willie, but continued intercepting phone conversations. It quickly became clear that both the sheriff and police chief were involved, and they even overheard the local prosecutor's name mentioned in one of the calls. The next day, Shirley and Willie argued again. "Shirley, you've got to see the prosecutor tomorrow at 10, Willie said. "Not happening," she snapped. "I already gave those bastards their monthly lovemaking. We agreed on 1 day a month, that's it." Willie frowned. "It's not them, Shirley. The prosecutor found out about us. Now you have to offer him the same deal. Tomorrow's his first turn. The sheriff says we make good money defending him, but the prosecutor needs to get a cut too," Willie added. "He wants 5% of our profits." Frustrated, Shirley shot back. "Damn it, Willie. Now I have to work 2 days a month for free, and we lose 15% of our income. How did you let this happen?" Willie muttered, "I didn't want this either, but the sheriff threatened us. If we leave, we're wanted for fornication and other charges. We're stuck with this. Just be grateful he lets us keep what we earn now," he added. Shirley, fuming, retorted, "I don't even know why I let you talk me into this. You promised we'd get rich, that we'd live the good life, and now I'm stuck doing this. Willie tried to lighten the mood. Come on, Shirley. You love your job. You asked me to protect you back then. It made us money, and it's making us more now. We'll get out of here and live on our terms, she muttered. You better be right. If this gets out, you're screwed. Have you thought about what happens if they find out about your other business? Will you have the same protection for that? Willie hissed. Shut up, Shirley. They don't know, and we need to keep it that way. If they found out, it could cause problems with some really dangerous people. Shirley scoffed. You're a damn fool. Willie sighed. Fine, you win again. Another wasted day. And once again, Shirley had to give in and provide for herself without compensation. The group discussed their progress and realized the situation had escalated. Originally, they planned to gather information on Shirley and Wilson and report them before Randy filed for divorce, which would have helped his case. But now that the top law enforcement officers in the county were involved, they needed to reassess. They also worried about Wilson's possible involvement in illegal activities and wanted to bring in serious law enforcement. During the meeting, Mona said, "We need to escalate this. I think we should contact the FBI." Randy, irritated, grumbled, "I don't know who has jurisdiction over this." "Look, Randy," Mona replied, "I know you want to hurt them, but we can't just go after them without considering the bigger picture. If the sheriff and the police chief are involved, we need to bring them down too. They won't have acted on this unless they're also protecting other criminals. We can't risk exposing what we know and letting them turn the tables on us." Randy was frustrated. "I just want to make them hurt as much as I do." Don, leaning back, chimed in. "We're not lawyers. We can't predict what'll happen. But I've heard that criminals don't get favorable divorce terms. You should talk to a lawyer before we go further." Don also added, "And no matter what, we need to get that money out of the safe as soon as possible." Randy agreed. "I'm not letting her take off with everything, especially not after all this." Don thought for a moment. "We can get you your money back, make it look like someone else took it. Scrap metal prices are high, and we have some on our farms. We can all pitch in and take it to the recycling center. We'll start at my place, cut up the big stuff, and load it onto trucks. When we get to your farm, we'll cut up the harvester," Don continued. "We'll open the safe, take most of the money, and leave a little behind, so it looks like it wasn't tampered with. If the recycling plant crushes it, it won't matter. If not, you'll still get most of it." Randy nodded. "And we hide the money until this blows over?" "Exactly," Don confirmed. "She'll be mad when she finds the harvester gone, but she won't have proof. And when everything settles, we'll return the money to you." Randy smiled, pleased. "Now that's the plan. We get the cash, but they lose it all." He chuckled. "She still can't win. I like it." "So how do we make Shirley and Willie pay?" Randy asked, his voice hard. "I still want them to feel it." Mona spoke up. "Don, I like your idea for several reasons. We're clearing out some junk, making extra cash, and most importantly, Randy gets a good chunk of Patsy's money. Does anyone know a good divorce lawyer?" she asked. "Preferably one who can help Randy with other issues, too." Slim chimed in. "I might know someone. Remember Paulette from school? She got a job in Centerton after college and worked for a company there. She went through a tough divorce, and I heard she knows a good lawyer." Randy's face turned red, and he muttered, "You're a real idiot, Slim." Everyone laughed, but Mona quickly steered the conversation back. "Okay, Slim, enough. Tell us about the lawyer." Slim continued. "I don't know any lawyers myself, but Paulette might be able to help us find one. She had to deal with a nasty divorce and might know someone." Randy sighed. "Does anyone else have a better idea? Who knows Paulette the best?" The room erupted in laughter, and Mona shot them a glare. "Enough, guys. Who knows her?" Finally, Don spoke up. "We all know her, but I don't think we've seen her since her dad died. What, 7 or 8 years ago? Does anyone know where she works or have her number?" The room went quiet. Randy spoke up. "Most of her family lives in Steelville. Her aunt was married to one of the Fieldings, and they almost owned the town. Maybe they can help." Mona sighed. "Okay, I'll go there tomorrow. Anything else?" Don replied. "Let's lay low for now. We need to see what the lawyer says before we involve the FBI." Everyone agreed, and the meeting ended after they made sure all their tracks were covered. The next day, Mona drove to Steelville and went to the local feed store. There was only one woman behind the counter, so Mona waited for her chance. Soon, another woman came out of the office and asked, "Can I help you?" Mona introduced herself. "I'm Mona Everett from Wilson's Mill. I went to school with Paulette Chambers, and I'm hoping to contact her. I heard her family was related to the Fieldings, so I came by to see if anyone here could help. The woman smiled. I'm Jennifer Fielding. Why don't you come into the office and we'll talk? After they sat down, Jennifer looked at Mona, clearly sizing her up. Why exactly are you looking for Paulette? I'm not giving out her info to just anyone. Mona hesitated, but then decided to tell part of the truth. Well, last week we were talking about old friends, and Paulette's name came up. We were having a break during a training meeting, and Jennifer's eyes narrowed. You were talking about my cousin during a training meeting? She snapped. Who are you, really? Mona straightened. I'm a retired U.S. Navy commander. You can take that as an order if you like. I need to see some ID, and unless you can convince me you mean Paulette no harm, I'm not giving you anything. Jennifer's intense gaze threw Mona off, but she stood firm. After a moment, she reached into her purse and handed over her ID. Jennifer took the ID, glanced at it, and handed it back. First sergeant, huh? Guess you're not some stalker or butcher, at least. So why are you looking for Paulette? Mona took a deep breath. We were in a meeting, and her name came up. One of my men has issues with his cheating wife. While investigating, we discovered something much bigger than we expected. A few years ago, we heard Paulette worked for a lawyer, so we thought she could help with divorce advice and something else. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. What else? You can't just drop a bomb like that. Mona hesitated. It's big, Jennifer. If this isn't handled carefully, people could get hurt. Maybe worse. Jennifer sighed. Okay. I'll take your word for it, for now. She picked up the phone, dialing a number from her book. Hi, Paul. I've got Mona Everett here. She's looking for a divorce lawyer and more. Yes, she won't say anything else. She says you know her. After a short pause, Jennifer added, They're open tomorrow at 9. No, I won't give out her personal number. Want to make an appointment? Mona made a quick call to Randy and confirmed. Yes, we'll be there. Jennifer looked at Mona. All right, tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Fielding and McCullum Lawyers, Centerton, 2987 South Primrose Avenue, 2nd floor. And First Sergeant, I hope I'll get the full story soon. Mona smiled. Thanks, ma'am. You'll likely hear all about it in a few weeks. The next morning, Randy, Don, and Mona arrived at the lawyer's office a little early. A woman about their age looked up from her computer and greeted them. Randy, what a surprise. Still with Mona and Donnie? Come on in. We were expecting just Mona, but I assume you're all together. Coffee? As Paulette left to grab coffee, a well-dressed man entered. I'm Chuck Fielding. Paul said you need advice on divorce. Which one of you is getting divorced? Randy raised his hand. I am, sir. Randy Thomas. Paulette returned with coffee and smiled. I see you're still troublemakers, she teased. Remember that time we got in trouble for our little escapade? Chuck laughed, extending a hand to Randy. I remember. Bradley hated you for years after that, didn't he? But let's not revisit the past. So, Randy, what brings you here? Randy blushed. Can we discuss this somewhere private? Chuck nodded. Right. Let's get to the conference room. The five of them moved to a more private space. After a bit of small talk, Chuck asked, All right, Randy, tell me what's going on. Randy explained everything, his suspicions about Shirley, her supposed actions in Iraq, and what he and his friends discovered about her affair with Wilson. When he mentioned the sheriff's involvement, Chuck stopped him. Wait, are you saying the sheriff, the police chief, and the prosecutor are taking protection money from Shirley and Wilson? That's a serious claim. Do you have proof? Randy looked at Mona. She pulled out a DVD from her bag. We do, she said, handing it to Chuck. This is just one of several recordings we have. Chuck inserted the DVD into his laptop and turned it so everyone could see. After it finished playing, he leaned back, stunned. I can't believe this. I've known Lawrence for years, long before he became prosecutor. I never thought he or the sheriff would be involved in something like this. Randy, I think you should hold off on your divorce for now, until the authorities finish their investigation. If they gather enough evidence against your wife, it could strengthen your case. And if we proceed with the divorce, we might harm the case against the sheriff and prosecutor. I can help with your divorce, but can you tell me what other information you have? Chuck then made a call. Betty, cancel my appointments for today and reschedule them. Also, call Mark Howard and tell him to come here ASAP. This is urgent. After the call, Chuck looked deep in thought. Paulette put her hand on Randy's arm. Randy, I'm so sorry. I know what you're going through. I caught my ex-husband cheating years ago, and Uncle Chuck helped me with the divorce. If you need to talk, I'm here. The group spent almost an hour discussing the case with Chuck and Mark from the FBI. They were instructed to halt all surveillance for now and retrieve their equipment, if possible, without being noticed. 3 months later, Mark approved Randy's divorce filing. During that time, Slim and Don cleared old equipment from their farms, working slowly in between other tasks. When they finally got the go-ahead, they quickly retrieved the cash from Randy's safe, worried that Shirley might take it or disappear. They waited until they were sure she and Wilson were at work before moving on their plan. Later that night, the group met at Don's house to count the money. After 2 hours, Mona looked up in shock. "Randy, there's almost $500,000 here. $487,400 to be exact. How long has she been doing this? And if she has this much, how much more has she spent or hidden? Has she ever been truthful with you?" Mona apologized, but Randy just sighed. "No worries, Mona. I've been asking myself the same thing. Honestly, I'm starting to wonder if the child she lost early in our marriage was even mine. Thank God we never had kids." The next afternoon, Slim, Don, and Randy were clearing scrap metal when Shirley walked into the machine room. She froze, staring at where the old combine used to be. Then she ran up to Randy. "Randy, what the hell happened to the combine and the equipment? We all needed extra money, so we decided to sell the scrap metal. We've been cleaning up Don and Slim's places and started on ours yesterday. Why do you care?" Shirley collapsed in tears. Randy shook his head. "What's wrong with you, Shirley? It's just scrap metal. Why are you crying? Where are you going?" "I really love that combine. It was the first big machine we bought for the farm," she sobbed. Randy shrugged. "Sorry, but I didn't think you'd be so attached to it. It's just old metal. It was probably melted down by now." Shirley slapped him, yelling, "You son of a witch! How could you get rid of our harvester?" She stormed out, and soon they heard her car start up. Randy rubbed his cheek and smiled. "Well, that went well, didn't it? Wonder where she's going." Everyone laughed and got back to work. Later that evening, Shirley still hadn't come home. At 8:30 p.m., Randy got a call. Shirley was crying. "Randy, I'm in jail in Centerton. Can you bail me out?" "Should I pay your bail? What the hell happened?" "It's $10,000. I was arrested for indecent exposure and resisting arrest. Please hurry." Randy was confused. "Indecent exposure? What were you doing?" "Nothing. It's all a misunderstanding. Please, just come." Randy chuckled after hanging up the phone and then called the Centerton Police Department to find out why Shirley had been arrested. The officer explained that Shirley had been causing a scene at the salvage yard, yelling about her harvester, and refused to leave when ordered. She was charged with trespassing, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest. Amused, Randy called Paulette. "Hey, if the papers are ready to file, can Chuck do it tomorrow? Shirley's in jail on $10,000 bail, which I'm not paying. I think it's time to let her know about this." The arrests came quickly. The next morning, a federal task force took down the county sheriff, police chief, prosecutor, and several others. Later, Wilson and his accomplice were arrested. Shirley's bail was raised, but no one paid it. By mid-afternoon, after a busy day for law enforcement, Randy received a call from Paulette. "Randy, Mr. Fielding wants to meet with you. Can you come tomorrow or the day after?" "Tomorrow works. What time should I be there?" The next day, Randy arrived at the law office and was greeted by Paulette, who hugged him before leading him to Chuck's office. After some small talk, Chuck leaned back and said, "Randy, I heard things were busy in Potter County yesterday. None of your friends got caught up in it, did they?" "No, but Shirley and her old high school buddy weren't too happy about it," Randy replied. Chuck raised an eyebrow. "Why do you bring that up?" "Well," Randy continued, "I wanted to discuss my wife and Wilson. We could file for divorce now, but I think it's better to wait. If she's convicted, it'll work out better for me. Maybe we can do a legal separation first?" Chuck nodded. "That way we can protect you from her debts. We'll announce the separation publicly, and you won't be liable for her bills anymore." Randy agreed, asking, "What can I expect with this route?" They discussed the details, and Randy decided to wait on the divorce. As they wrapped up, Randy's stomach growled. He turned to Paulette. "Would you like to grab lunch? I skipped breakfast and I'm starving." Paulette smiled. "I'd love that." The lunch turned out to be a great time. They laughed, reminisced, and enjoyed each other's company as if the past 18 years hadn't happened. They even held hands and touched each other during the conversation. But then Paulette glanced at the clock. "Oh no, it's almost 2 o'clock. I'm late. Chuck will liquidate me. We need to go." Randy, a little confused at first, quickly realized, "Sorry, I lost track of time too." At the restaurant, Randy quickly paid the bill while Paulette fidgeted impatiently. When they returned to the office, Betty greeted them with a teasing smile. "Running a bit late, Paulette? Mr. Fielding was wondering if we needed to send a search party after you." Paulette laughed, flustered. "No, just lost track of time. I'll let Chuck know I'm back. Sorry about the lunch interruption." Paulette hurried down the hallway to Mr. Fielding's office. not noticing Randy following her. She knocked and peeked inside. "Sorry, I'm late, sir. Randy and I were talking, and I lost track of time. I'll stay late to catch up." Before Chuck could respond, Randy gently stepped past her. "No, Paulette. This time it's my fault. I stayed too long at lunch and didn't watch the time. Just charge me for the wasted time and leave her alone." Chuck raised an eyebrow. "You know, Randy, when I met you and your friends a few weeks ago, some people warned me about you and Paulette. I take it this isn't the first time you've gotten into trouble together?" Randy stiffened, but Paulette's hand on his shoulder calmed him. Chuck quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, Randy. That was a poor joke. Don't worry about being late. Lunch with a client is business. We'll keep you updated on your case." 3 months later, Shirley's case was resolved. She was convicted of trafficking, trespassing, and resisting arrest, receiving a 6-month sentence with time served credited. Her sentence was suspended, and she was placed on 2 years probation. She was acquitted of trafficking white powder. The day after the verdict, Shirley was served with divorce papers. The court case moved forward with the only asset to divide being the farm, which had little equity. The judge ruled that Randy would pay Shirley $500 per month in alimony for 2 years and 20% of the farm's value. Shirley protested. "What? I should get half and more money each month. I think Randy's hiding something. He sold scrap metal, and I bet there's more money than he says." The judge reviewed the financials. "The scrap sale was recorded, and the proceeds were transferred to your joint account. The financials are clear." Mr. Thomas was granted a divorce on the grounds of adultery, and the division stands. Court session closed. As Randy and his lawyer left the courtroom, Shirley hissed, "You're a thief, Randy. You stole my money." Chuck stepped in. "We'll take a loan against the farm for the agreed amount and send you a cashier's check within a week. Lump sum support payments will be sent as well." Outside the courtroom, Paulette greeted Randy with a hug. "Congratulations, Randy. You got a much better deal than you would have without the convictions. What's next for you?" Randy smiled. "I'm going home to forget all this. Don said he'd lend me money to pay her off, and then I can be done with her. For now, I'll just keep farming." Over the next few months, life returned to normal for Randy and his friends. They met often, at a cafe in the mornings or a bar on weekends, usually discussing the year's big news, the arrests and prosecutions of local law enforcement. They were pleased when Terry was elected sheriff after his involvement in exposing the previous sheriff's criminal activities. One morning, while the friends were at the cafe, a door slammed open. The sound of light footsteps approached, and suddenly a pair of small hands grabbed Randy's shoulders and pulled him into an embrace. He inhaled the scent of perfume as blonde hair brushed against his ear. A melodic voice said, "Well, look at the hard-working farmer, growing crops to feed the city." Randy turned to see a stunning, healthy figure standing just behind him, grinning at his surprised expression. He jumped to his feet. "Paulette, what are you doing here? Come sit down and have coffee with us." Shortly after Paulette arrived, Don and Mona left to get back to work, followed by Sleem. About 15 minutes later, Randy and Paulette continued chatting. Time flew by, just like it did in the city when they had lunch together 3 times before. Finally, around 10:30, Randy said, "Paulette, I'm sorry, but I really need to head home and take care of something. Are you staying around long? Maybe we could meet up later for a burger or grab a beer at Dottie's." "I'm on vacation for 2 weeks," Paulette replied. "This week I'm with my mom for the 4th, and next week I'm just going to drive around and see the country before heading back to work." "What are you up to today? Maybe I can help?" Randy asked. "Not much, really. I need to finish working on my planter for the second soybean crop. Change the plates, lubricate, and then I'll work on the combine. If you want, you could come by while I work on it. I like to have everything ready before the 4th. "Sounds great," Paulette said. "I miss working on the farm. I used to love helping my dad with the field work. I miss the animals too, but not the hard, dirty work. I never want to milk another cow again. Still, I enjoyed bottle feeding the calves." "You should come to the 4th of July party at my place," Randy suggested. "We always have a big celebration with too much food and drink. We swim, fish, play golf. You remember what we used to do when we were dating? I'm sure everyone would love to see you again." "I don't know," Paulette replied. "I think a few of them still wanted to kick my A back then." Paulette laughed, her eyes sparkling. "Yeah, but they got over it. Mom would be happy to see you again. She always said you were the best guy I ever brought home." "Then it's a date," Randy said, smiling. "The 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays, after Thanksgiving and Christmas. Shirley and I always took a day off and went camping by the river, barbecuing with our friends." Paulette noticed Randy's eyes mist up as he paused and clenched his jaw in anger, remembering his ex-wife's actions. She gently placed her hand on his shoulder. I know the pain is still there. It'll heal with time, but trust me, it's going to take a while. You'll never forget, though, and that makes it hard to trust again. Randy and Paulette drove to his farm in separate cars. He waited for her to get out before inviting her inside to look around. When she complimented the yard and exterior, Randy said, I really need to get to work, Paul. He went to the fridge, grabbed a beer, and tossed over his shoulder. Want one? Of course, Paulette replied with a smile. It's been a while since I've eaten this early. Remember those days when we went canoeing and had that relationship? We'd be finishing our second or third beer by 10 in the morning. Yeah, those were the good times, Randy said with a nostalgic sigh. He looked at her with a hint of regret. We sure had a lot of fun last summer before everything changed. Paulette laughed. Sometimes I regret not ignoring Dad and sticking with you. By the time I finally stood up to him, you and the others were already in training. When you came back, I was in college, and you guys had already moved on. Paulette sat with Randy while he worked, quickly becoming his assistant, carrying tools and helping however she could. They worked and joked all day. Around 2:30 p.m., Randy's stomach growled loudly. I need to get something to eat. Come have lunch with me. It's just a sandwich and chips, but if you behave, I'll have another beer with you. Paulette smiled. Sure, if it's no trouble. After a quick lunch, they returned to the machine room to finish up. Around 4:30 p.m., Randy cleaned his hands with some store-bought cleaner and turned to Paulette. Well, that's done. How about we clean up and head to the bar for dinner? Sounds fun, Paulette replied. I'll have to run home and freshen up, though. I feel pretty dirty and probably smell terrible, but I really enjoyed today. Thanks for putting up with me. No problem, Randy said. You helped me out a lot, and it was great seeing you again. What do you say I pick you up around 6? Sounds good. I'll be ready. It was almost 3 a.m. when Randy dropped Paulette off at her mother's house. He walked her to the door, and before she went inside, he hugged her and kissed her gently. Stepping back a couple of feet, he smiled and said, I had a great time tonight, Paul. Thanks for coming out with me. Paulette smiled, placed her hand on his chest, and looked up at him with sparkling eyes. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him quickly. I can't remember the last time I enjoyed a night out this much. Thank you for inviting me. She stepped back, put her hand on the doorknob, and glanced over at Randy before stepping inside. Randy slowly made his way back to his truck and drove home. After a nice dinner and a night of dancing at a local club, they stopped for breakfast at a late-night diner before heading back to Wilson's Mill. Randy got home, undressed, and headed straight for the shower to wash off the cigarette smoke from the night. He then collapsed into bed and quickly fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. When he woke up around 10 a.m., he brewed his morning coffee and went about his chores. He fed the chickens, collected eggs, took care of the dog, and took a moment to enjoy the quiet. Afterward, he poured himself a cup of coffee and sat on the covered patio, pulling out his phone to call Paulette. When Paulette answered, Randy grinned and said, Good morning, beautiful. I was just sitting here with my coffee and wanted to thank you again for last night. They chatted for a while before Randy said, I've got to run, honey. I need to get some things done or I'll fall behind. Okay, bye, she replied. Just before hanging up, Randy called out, Hey, wait, what time should I pick you up for the barbecue on Thursday? I don't know. You remember, people usually start showing up around 9:30 and we make a whole day of it. Okay, I'll see you then. Randy felt a bit out of place when he and Paulette arrived at the family gathering. He recognized almost everyone except for the out-of-town spouses, but even some of them were familiar from seeing them around the city. For the first few minutes, Paulette introduced him to the people he didn't know and proudly stood by his side as he greeted the ones he did. Once he was settled, Paulette left Randy with some of their mutual friends and went to help the women set up the food. On her way, she passed the grill area and hugged her older brother, Bradley. He returned the hug, looked at Randy, and raised an eyebrow. You look like the cat that got the cream, little sis. Want to talk about it? Are you sure this is a good idea? No. Yes. Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's like we never really were apart. He makes me laugh, and it's been so long since I've had this much fun, Brad. I missed him so much when Dad sent him away, but I was too scared to go against his wishes. Now it feels like we've been given a second chance. I want it to work so badly, but we're different people now. We're not the same two kids who got caught in the hayloft that night. Be careful, sis. Don't rush into things just because you think you remember loving him in high school. I think he's a good guy, but you know how tough farming is. He's a farmer and you've lived the easy city life. Are you sure you want to chase after that? I think so. We're just talking, but it's too early for anything serious. We had a few long lunches while he was going through his divorce, and we've only had 2 real dates. Last Saturday, I helped him with his equipment before we went out. It was fun. It might be fun for a day, sis, but is that what you want long-term? Didn't you always want to leave the farm when you went to college? I did. Well, not really. I just wanted to get away from Dad and the cows. I never minded the idea of being a farmer's wife, whether it was for grain or beef. But milking cows, that was different. We never got vacations. We had to be home twice a day to milk. We'd start at 6:30 a.m., and if we were lucky, we'd be done by 7 or 8 at night. To his surprise, Randy had a great time at the barbecue. After eating, he and Paulette walked to the swimming area, swam, talked, and had a few beers with some of their old school friends. Before long, it was time to help clean up and head home. By the end of the summer, Randy and Paulette were talking almost every evening. They had at least 1 date a week, sometimes 2, unless Randy was swamped at the farm. In those cases, Paulette would usually meet him at the end of his workday, or join him for a quick lunch in the field, sometimes even riding along with him in the equipment when it was safe to do so. She especially enjoyed riding in the combine. It had an extra seat and air conditioning. A couple of times, she even drove his grain truck to the elevator during harvest. It felt like old times for her. And while waiting to unload, she chatted with others at the elevator. Finally, the harvest was finished and Randy planted winter wheat. He was able to slow down and work shorter days once again. He received an invitation to spend Thanksgiving with Paulette's family. It was a beautiful fall day, with the temperature around 15 degrees. After dinner, Paulette and Randy walked to the back of her mother's small farm, sat by the river, and talked. Randy seemed quieter and more withdrawn than usual. After a while, Paulette looked at him and asked, "Is something wrong, Randy? You've been really quiet today." "No, honey. I was just thinking about us," he replied. For some reason, Paulette felt a sudden wave of unease. "What do you mean? Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know. No, I mean, well, I really enjoyed the summer after my divorce when we were together, but I don't want things to stay the way they are," he said, his words hanging in the air. Paulette felt a surge of fear again. She opened her mouth to ask what he meant, but Randy continued, "I keep wondering what it would have been like if things had turned out differently when we left school. I feel so good when I'm with you, and it makes me angry to think about all the years we lost. I don't want to lose any more time, Paulette." Randy turned to her, took her hand, and added, "I'm getting tired of seeing you just once or twice a week or talking on the phone for a few minutes every night. I've been trying to figure out the best way to ask you to marry me, but I just can't think of any grand way to do it." Paulette gasped, her heart racing as she heard the words. Her eyes filled with tears, and her voice shook as she asked, "Did you just ask me to marry you?" Randy pulled a ring from his pocket and handed it to her with a weak smile. "Yeah, I guess I did. Not the most convincing proposal, huh? But I really love you. I think I've always loved you. Getting to know you again this spring and summer just made me realize how much. So what do you say? Will you marry me?" Paulette smiled through her tears, taking the ring from him. "Yeah, it was pretty lame, but that's okay. Yes, I'll marry you." She slipped the ring onto her finger, and they did what young lovers do when they're in love. They kissed, sealing their promise as their hearts grew even closer. After a few passionate kisses, Paulette gently pulled away from Randy, straightened her clothes, and smiled. She stood up and extended her hand to help him up. "Come on, I want to get back to the house before they leave, show everyone my ring, and share the news." After some careful thought, Paulette decided to set the wedding date for the July 4th weekend the following year so that her extended family could be there. She and Randy moved in together on his farm just before Christmas. She found herself enjoying country life again and had no regrets when she handed in her resignation that spring to prepare for her wedding and help Randy on the farm. The week of the 4th of July held a special place in their hearts for many reasons. Not only was it their nation's birthday, but it was also the week they lost each other in their youth. After high school, on the 4th of July, they had been caught together and her father had sent Randy away, forbidding them to see each other again. They began their new relationship in the same week, so it felt only fitting to get married then. From that day forward, the 4th of July remained a day of deep significance for them, carrying the memories of both loss and love right up until the end of their lives.